Good morning, everybody. Dale here. I've been working on a project building garage storage cabinets. Easy for me to say. And I'll be putting those videos up within a couple of weeks or so. But in the meantime, I wanted to review a straight edge system that I bought in order to try to help me make straighter cuts on ripping up these large sheets of plywood that I am using for the project. And so let's get to it. So this is the system I bought. It's made by Bora. It's called the Bora 100-inch clamp edge, and it actually comes in two pieces, which you can see joined right there. Real easy to take apart and put back together. It's got these screws that you just simply unscrew it. You can see this hole here for hanging on a nail, another one up here. So the system breaks down and can store real easy in a small garage, which is what I have. And so I purchased this thing without any plate guide system on it. And I have been just butting my saw up against the edge after I get it set and cutting it that way, cutting the sheets that way. And it hasn't worked out very well for me. The cuts are straight enough for garage cabinet use, but there's definitely some wavy cuts that I've made. Pieces don't join up exactly when I dry fitted them, and so I wanted to see if there. I know they sell a plate system, so I purchased that, and I'm going to be kind of reviewing that today. So the system that I purchased is the Bora NGX Pro saw plate. There's no text on any of these cartoons, and the cartoons themselves, some are self-explanatory, but some others, for example like this one, are not. And I went on YouTube and I found an excellent video by Mark LeBlanc, and that's Mark spelled with a C. He had a great video that went through all this, and so I won't repeat what he's already done, but thanks, Mark. So anyway, this saw plate system comes with what they call a non-chip strip, and it's kind of a piece of hard plastic that has some sticky side to it that you fit right here along the groove. And the purpose of this is supposed to be twofold. One, when the clamp system is over, this lies flush with the plywood or your sheet good, and it is supposed to mitigate chipping, but it's also supposed to serve as a guide. When you make your first cut, your blade is supposed to come along the edge of this and kind of serve as a guide for you to line your straight edge up on your cut. And so I'm going to show you the plate next. So here's the plate system. It's got a clamp that clamps your saw down on the front, and then two clamps on the back, one there, and this bar right here slides. You tighten it up with these 3mm Allen wrench bolts. So you basically, when you're setting it up, I won't get into it, this has been done on YouTube by several people, but you want to position it so that the blade is close enough that it actually hits that non-chip strip. And the problem is that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it close enough and still keep this blade guard functional, which to me is that would be a deal breaker. So we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and set it up and see if it's going to work. All right, I think I finally got it. Took at least a half an hour. I wasn't timing myself, but somewhere between a half an hour and 45 minutes of going back and forth and iterating. So here's what I came up with. I put it on blocks, and I lowered the blade so I could get more accurate measurements from using my calipers from the blade to that edge right there. And I finally got it the same on both sides, locked it down, flipped it over, and measured it from the back. Finally got it right. That took probably 10 tries to get that going. Another little trick I used was used a rubber band to get the blade guard out of the way, and so it basically the blade, it won't go down right now because it's on blocks, but the blade is as close as I can get it to that yellow edge without with being able to use the blade guard, which is a deal breaker, like I said, for me. And the other little thing that you got to be careful about is the placement of these clamps. I would have liked it to have been a little bit more centered, but it's going to get in the way of the wing nut there that controls the blade depth. So didn't learn or realize that until I'd already got it set up one time. So anyway, took a bit, but I think I finally got it, so we'll see how it works. All right, here's the test cut setup. So I've got the clamp set. I am cutting a piece of scrap plywood that I have, and I added an extra piece on the end down here. So you can see here's the chip strip. Can't remember exactly what they call it, but I tacked put another piece on the edge of the this other piece, another piece of scrap, so that as I'm cutting, if the blade is actually close enough to go through that strip, it won't knock it off if it's not supported from below. So I'm going to turn this off, give it a go, let you know what happens. All right, I believe I had some success here. So in order to get the saw onto the track, I had to manually lift the guard to set it in there, which is not a deal breaker for me. That's how I typically start cutting anyway, is the saw is not on. And then as soon as the saw reached the end and I went off the track, the blade guard flipped right back over. So I'm happy with that. And it was close enough to the edge guide to cut a thin strip of this chip guard. And so now I can use that edge to guide where my cut's going to be. So I think all systems are go. I'm going to turn this off and start actually cutting some pieces of wood for my cabinet project, and I'll sum things up after that. All right, the results are in. So first, the pros of this system. It works really well after you spend the time to do the setup and get that saw aligned on the plate properly. Once that's done, and if you're able to use the strip like I was able to for a cut edge, it's easy to line that strip up on your cut mark. Very easy, actually. And when you do, I've only made 3 cuts with this so far, but they'd cut very straight and easily. The other I mentioned is that this system has 2 halves, and it easily breaks down into 2 pieces. It's easy to add them and take them off, and so that lets you, cut up to an 8-foot, sheet product. And those 2 halves are pretty storable. And then the price. It's the track system, the 2 halves plus the saw plate, cost me $160, which is, what, 20 to 30% of some of the other systems that are out there. So pretty inexpensive. And once you get it going, it works. So some of the cons are, as we talked about, the instructions. I thought left a lot to be desired, and so again, thank Mark LeBlanc. Another channel that I watched was Roger's Shop, and then a third one was Workshop Addict. So all 3 of those channels had videos on this system that I found very helpful. Anyhow, getting past that, the other thing is I'm not sure how long term this strip is going to last. We'll see. It's on sticky tape that's on there, so we'll see if it holds up for the long haul. It's hanging out there a little bit, so it's probably going to be easy for me to catch this on something and maybe tear it off. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure why they made that strip so thin, because it's really hard to get your saw set up so that your blade is is far enough away to allow the blade guard to be used, but close enough to be able to cut through that strip on the initial cut. So would have been nice if they'd have made that a little bit wider for everybody. The other thing that I wanted to point out is this locking mechanism. This is by no means a deal breaker, but when it's locked, the handle is in this position, and so you have to adjust your cutting surface, you know, for example, like I have right here, in order for this thing to be locked in. So in other words, I can't just set it on a, you know, if I tried to, I can't cut it with that piece of foam in the way. I've got to make room for it. Not a deal breaker, but you know, I'm just wondering why they didn't make this locking mechanism open in this position and close when it's locked down this way, so you could, you wouldn't have to keep moving that piece around. I'm guessing I looked about max thickness because the plate takes up some thickness and then this thing takes up some thickness, so it looks like I'm going to get about 1.5 inches of cut depth. But again, not a deal breaker. I don't cut anything normally thicker than 1 inch with sheet stock. And the other last thing is I don't want to have to go through setting that thing up again, and I'm not sure how accurate it's going to be if I keep taking the saw out of that plate and then putting it back on. So my guess is I'm just going to go out and buy another saw and leave that one on. So that ups the price a little bit. In any case, so that's what I came up with on this system. I hope this helps some folks, and we'll talk to you later.